Hey, so today we are gonna make a vegan pizza with the fermented tomato paste that we made a few weeks ago. Alright, so the first thing we're gonna do is take our dough. I've been using the same dough for a few years, the same recipe for a homemade dough. But you can use whatever your favorite recipe is, or just Google and look up your own. This is a organic white soft wheat that I buy from Azure Standard, and I buy all of our stuff in bulk. All right, I'm just gonna set this aside and then let me show you guys how I do my tomato paste. It's pretty simple. All right, so this is just gonna be for one pizza. So you can adjust this recipe to however you want it. Remember that when we made the fermented tomato paste, it had a ton of salt in it. So I'm not gonna really add any salt to this. So I'm gonna just give you guys guesses here. So probably about it's about 2 tablespoons. I'm gonna do about a 1/3 cup water. There we go. So that thickened up really nice. So this is basically just salted tomato. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add in about, I'm gonna say 1/2 teaspoon basil, 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. So I'm gonna put in about 2 garlic cloves. All right, that took a little bit longer than I thought, but mine was really 2 large garlic cloves. So if you've got small garlic cloves, go ahead and use 4. If you like more garlic, add more garlic. If you like less garlic, add less garlic. I've got some fresh basil here, and I also have some nutritional yeast. Now let's just say you wanted to kind of stop and just make this your sauce. You could probably stop right here and just do this as your sauce. But since we're doing vegan, and which means we're not doing any dairy, I'm gonna do about 1/2 cup of nutritional yeast. This is gonna give it kind of a cheesy flavor and add some vitamin B's and some other nutrients. So I'm gonna dump this in here. Now this is gonna make the sauce look more mustardy. Okay, now I'm just gonna add more water. So I'm probably gonna need to add about a 1/3 more cup water. Let's see how this goes. You could just sprinkle the nutritional yeast on, but if you mix it in with the sauce, it gives it kind of a more creamy taste. All right. So there you have it. And I actually think, let me take a smell. I think I may add a little bit more basil and a little bit more oregano. So I'm gonna say a heavy, like a heaping 1/2 teaspoon and a heaping 1/2 teaspoon each of basil and oregano. And then I'm also gonna add this on. So this is just fresh basil from the garden. Wow, that smells really strong. It's super yummy. Okay. All right, my kids have put away my knife sharpener somewhere, so my knife is a bit dull, so I'll probably have to find that before we get onto the vegetables. So, okay, so that ended up being about 1/8 of a cup of kind of chopped basil. The dried basil and the fresh basil give 2 totally different flavors, so I like to put both in. All right, so there's our sauce with our fermented tomato paste. Now the next thing we're going to do is chop up our veggies. All right, now we have some veggies from the garden. So the first thing I'm gonna cut up, I like red onion, but you guys can do whatever veggies you want. Some things that we don't have that you might wanna do are mushrooms, black olives or Kalamata olives, red onion or white onion. I'm gonna chop up some bell peppers, fresh tomatoes. Our garden's still growing plenty of tomatoes right now. It's mid-September. All right, so just super easy. Bell peppers from the garden. I think we've probably now harvested at least 80 pounds off of our bell pepper plants this year, which is just absolutely magnificent. Did not expect that at all. But you know, you win some, you lose some. I expected other things that didn't go so well, but as far as the bell peppers, I'm really happy with that. That just sprayed me in the face. All right, from the tomato from the garden. It's amazing how juicy these items are from the garden. I literally got splashed in the face from the bell pepper, cutting the bell pepper. Okay, let me grab another tomato. This has flour on it. I'm not sure what variety these are. This one I can tell is a Cherokee purple. The other one I think is called a Hungarian oxheart, and I'm only guessing that because my little kids pulled all the tags out of the garden, so everything was a surprise this year. Some of the melons and stuff, we have no idea what it is or what varieties they are. I'm gonna grab some black olives and chop those up. My kids like black olives. I prefer Kalamata olives. You could also put greens on your pizza. You could put kale. You could put Swiss chard. You could even saute your greens and put your greens on there sauteed. Mushrooms, broccoli. I've seen people put different squashes on their pizzas. You could do summer squash. You could do already cooked up winter squash on your pizzas. Just kind of depends on what your family likes and what you guys enjoy and what you have coming out of the garden or what you actually have bought from the grocery store. All right, I think this is enough for the one pizza. In our family, we usually end up making about 4 or 5 pizzas this size. If we have a lot of vegetables, then we have less pizza, but all right, so here we are. I'm going to grab a couple things and then we'll put our pizza together on the stone. All right, I just threw down a little bit of flour on there, or you can use cornmeal. Kind of depends on what you want to do. I have this really great stone from Sonoma Williams. Just gonna dump my sauce out. All right, so there it is before it goes in the oven. I've got my oven set at 500 to 515. So while the other pizza's in the oven, I'm gonna show you one more recipe, but it's not with a tomato paste. It's something that I make all the time. It's a garlic focaccia. It's basically an Italian bread, and I use the same pizza dough that I used. I've got here, this is one of those little tiny mason jars. It's about half full with good olive oil. I've got about 4 cloves of garlic. I use a lot of garlic. I'm gonna put in a half a teaspoon of oregano, a half a teaspoon of basil, and then just stir that really, really good. I've got more fresh basil, but I'd have to run out to the garden really quick, so I'm not gonna use that, but you could. Just stir it really good. Oh, and I added a couple pinches of salt. And then I just dump it out. It's super easy. Spread it out all over the pizza. And I cook this also at about 550 degrees. And you know, you just cook it until you like it. I mean, some people like their pizza dough or their focaccia really chewy. Some people like it really crunchy. So just cook it to however you like it. I tend to forget about mine a lot because of my kids. I get distracted and I'm a lot ADD. All right, and then you could sprinkle more coarse salt over the top if you wanted or not. I just have it on my pizza peel, so hopefully it'll slide off when it's supposed to. And then I'll throw this on my stone. I meant to mention before that my stone is from Sonoma Williams, and it's a really, really thick stone, and it's really amazing. So we'll check the pizza here in a few minutes. All right, so I'll have to check my clock here in a second and see how many minutes this has been. Alright, so here we go. So it's steaming, it looks delicious, the crust looks amazing. Okay, there's our focaccia. Oh, the garlic's burning my eyes. Alright, so this is our focaccia. So this is it for this week's video. If you don't have fermented tomato paste, you can just use canned tomato paste, or, you know, fresh tomatoes, you can skip the tomato paste altogether. But the whole point of the video was to do the fermented tomato paste. So, and this is our garlic focaccia. It's super yummy. You can eat it with soups, you can eat it with salads, eat it with pretty much anything. You can even take this, make up the fermented tomato paste sauce that I showed you that I put on the pizza, and use that as a dipping sauce and dip your focaccia in that if you want. So that's it for today's video. Thanks for coming into our home and letting us show you what we've been doing with our tomato paste. So have a good day. See you next week.